This chapter deals with the anatomy of the digestive system. The organs of the digestive system together perform of the vital functions on the preparing food for absorption for the use of millions of body cells. Most food, when eaten, is a form that cannot reach the cells, nor could it be used by the cells even it could reach them. It must be modified in both chemical composition and physical state so that the nutrients can be absorbed and used by the cells. The complete process of ingestion of food material so that it can be absorbed and used by the body cells is called digestion. The complex process of these functions of both the digestive tract and the accessory organs that make up the digestive system and physiology of digestive system is I will discuss today. The GI tract is essentially a tube with walls, fashions of four layers of tissues, a lining, a submucous coat of connective tissues in which are embedded the main blood vessels of the tract, a muscular layer, and a proboscis layer. Blood vessels and nerves travel through mesentery to reach the digestive throughout most of its length. Mucosa. The innermost layer of the GI wall, the layer facing the lumen, or the open space of the tube is called the mucosa or mucous layer. The mucosa is made up of three layers: the inner mucous epithelium, a layer of loose connective tissues called the lamina propria, and the thin layer of smooth muscles called the muscularis mucosa. Submucosa. The submucosal layer of digestive tube is called the connective tissues that is thicker than the mucosal layer. It contains numerous small glands, blood vessels, and parasympathetic nerves that form the submucosal plexus. Muscularis. The muscularis or muscular layer is a thick layer of muscles tissues that wraps around the submucosa. This portion of the wall is characterized by an inner layer of circular and an outer layer of longitudinal smooth muscles. Like the submucosa, the muscularis contains nerves organized into a plexus called the mesenteric plexus. This plexus lies between the two muscle layers. The term intramural plexus is used to describe both plexus. Together, they play an important role in the regulation of the digestive tract, movement, and secretion. The serosa. The serosa layer is an outermost layer of GI wall. It is made of a serous membrane. The serosa is actually the visceral layer of peritoneum, the serous membrane that lines the abdominopelvic cavity that covers its organs. The lining attached the covering walls of the abdominal pelvic cavity is the parietal layer of the peritoneum. The fold of the serous membrane that connects the parietal and visceral portion is called the mesentery. Although the same four tissues forms the various organs of the GI tract, their structures varies in different regions of the tube throughout its length. Variations in the epithelial layer of the mucosa, for example, range from a stratified layer of squamous cells that provide protection from abrasion in the upper part of the esophagus to the simple columnar epithelium. These descend for absorption and secretion, which is found throughout the most of the tract. Mouth. Structure of the oral cavity. The mouth is also called the oral cavity. The following structures form the oral cavity or vocal cavity. The lips, which surrounds the orifice of the mouth and form the anterior boundary of the oral cavity. The cheeks, or the side walls. The tongue and its muscle, or the floor. And the hard palate and the soft palate, or the roof. Lips. The lips are covered internally by skin and internally by mucous membrane that continues into oral cavity and lines the mouth. The junction between skin and mucous membrane is highly sensitive and easily irritated. The upper lip is marked as the near midline by the shallow vertical groove called the philtrum, which ends in the junction between skin and mucus. The term fissures is often usually to describe a cleft or groove between the separating anatomical structure. Therefore, when the lips are closed, the line of contact between them is called the oral fissures. Besides keeping the food in mouth while in being chewed, the lips help sense of temperature and texture of food before it enters the mouth. The lips are also needed to form many speech division of the stomach. The fundus, body, and pylorus are the major division of the stomach. The fundus is the enlarged portion of the left and above the opening of the esophagus into the stomach. The body is the central part of the stomach, and the pylorus is its lower position. The smaller collar or the margin of the stomach at each junction is the esophagus is often called the cardia or cardiac part. Curves of the stomach. The curves form the upper right surface of the stomach is known as the lesser curvatures. The curve form the lower left surface is known as the greater curvatures. Sphincter muscles. Sphincter muscles regulates passage of material and both stomach openings. Sphincter muscles, as you know, consist of circular fibers arranged to form an opening of the center of them when they are relaxed and no opening when they are fully contracted. The lower esophageal sphincter or cardiac sphincter control the opening of the esophagus and the stomach. The pyloric sphincter controls the opening of the pyloric portion of the stomach into the first part of the small intestine. Stomach walls. Each of the four layers of the stomach walls suits the functions of these organs. Of particular interest are the modification to the stomach mucosa and muscularis, both of which are briefly described below. Gastric mucosa. The epithelial lining of the stomach is drawn into folds, called rhogae. The marked by depression, called gastric pits. Numerous coiled tubular type gland, gastric glands are found below the level of the pits, particularly on the fundus and the body of the stomach. The glands secrete most of the gastric juices, a mucus fluid containing digestive enzymes and hydrochloric acids. A lower power micrograph of mucosal lining in the body of the stomach shows numerous gastric pits and an uniform underlying layer of coiled gastric glands. The mucosal lining is easily differentiated from the deeper submucosal layer in this section. In addition to the mucus-producing cells that covers the entire surface of the stomach and the lines of the pits, the gastric glands contains three major secretory cells: the chief cells, parietal cells, and the endocrine cells. Chief cells or the zygomenic cells secretes the enzymes of gastric juice. Ariza cells secretes hydrochloric acids that also thought to produce the important substances known as the intrinsic factors. Intrinsic factors binds to vitamin B12, protect them the digestive juices until they reach the small intestine, and then facilitate the absorption of B12. Endocrine cells secrete ghrelin, a hormone that stimulates the hypothalamus to secrete growth hormone and increase appetite. The gastrin, which influence digestive function,